you worked on a new Gamer Escape skin for 9 months with all sorts of testing, released it, put it into the wild, and had dozens and dozens of issues. Yes, it's the same with, that's why the PTR on WoW works, right? Is like for all the things that we wish were changed, like how a core system works, the PTR gets hundreds of thousands of hours of play. And so, like, one of the things that the PTR does do for WoW is, WoW has really smooth launches. Like, compared to Endwalker, where, like, or Stormblood, WoW in general, while WoW may have balance issues and content droughts and all of these things that you don't like about WoW, the one thing about WoW is if you ever played back in the day in, like, vanilla, the server would go offline for so long that they had to apologize and give you game time, and that was like a weekly occurrence. Dragonflight, I expect to be a smooth and easy launch. I gotta do my leveling roulette. I was like, why can't I do my next quest? I logged off yesterday because I couldn't do leveling roulette. And so it has a large-scale issue with, like, content, but it has a large-scale solution to problems. It just works. No amount of QA can put in thousands of hours of testing that are in the first day. Yes, I believe that. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's so, like, the WoW PTR, like, when I hopped onto the WoW PTR for Shadowlands, I don't like to have my content spoiled, so I don't want to do the quest line. I don't want to see any of the dungeons for WoW, because, like, if I covered it, like, the media tour is different because I cover it for my job. But, like, I don't want things spoiled. Also, thankfully, Square puts it in a way that it doesn't spoil me. WoW doesn't make such filter. So, he said that's odd, he'll fix it soon. So he, like, with the WoW stuff, I was most concerned about the profession changes for Shadowlands. They were moving to a system called Time-Worn Artifacts. So, let me explain Time-Worn Artifacts real quick. So, in WoW, you level up, and every expansion they increase the level cap. Just like Final Fantasy. When you craft items, they are crafted for that level range. So a level 15 item, or, you know, a level 5 item, right? Level 40 item. And so as you level up your crafter, and over the years, they've created the ability where, like, you might progress through an expansion and not do any of its crafting. So the crafting has been sectioned off so that your crafter would have, instead of a level, it would look much closer to the descent screen, where you would have, like, a level for how much Heavensward crafting you have, how much a Realm Reborn crafting you have. Have a good one, Goo. You have, right, you would have all of these different kind of layers of your crafting level, instead of your crafting working out the same way that your PvE levels are, where it's just 1 to max. Now, with Shadowlands, they did the first big level squish, and they said, you know what, we're going to take everybody back to level 60. It would work much the same if Endwalker did it. Next expansion, we said, we're going to take you all back to level 50 or 60 or whatever. So they push you all back. And they did that based on scale. So if you look at the total amount of experience from 1 to 90, it's really backloaded. So, like, 89 to 90 hits a lot harder than 1 to 10. We're going to take that, and we're going to take the new amount of experience you need, and we're going to adjust you on a ratio. So your level may adjust slightly. You might move from 51 to 45, right? So you're going to do that. We saw a little bit of adjustment happening with Endwalker, where, like, people's experience bar got reduced, but their number didn't get reduced. With Shadowlands, the number got reduced. But one of the things that breaks is it breaks crafting, because now each expansion functions differently. So now, the way World of Warcraft works is they have a new starting player zone. Think of, like, the Hall of the Novice. They have a new starting playing zone that works very different than Hall of the Novice, but that's the closest parallel. There's nothing truly like it in 14. And you have this Hall of the Novice experience, and then you play one of the old expansions. Any of them. Let's call it A Realm Reborn, Heavensward, Stormblood, Shadowbringers. Any of them. Now, they currently have you playing the one that they think is the best fit. They think it's BFA. So imagine they just said, you know what, we think Shadowbringers plays well on its own, which is something that the Yoshi P did say. He said, we expect longtime story players, story skippers, and new players that have bought a story skip to enjoy Shadowbringers, regardless of whether or not they have any ARR through Stormblood knowledge. So they picked Shadowbringers. Moving into Dragonflight, they're going to keep it BFA, so this would be like moving out of Endwalker, they keep it Shadowbringers. Great. After you are a new player and you've done that Shadowbringers experience, you will move into the current expansion, which is Endwalker. Makes sense. New players in Dragonflight will move out of BFA into Dragonflight. They will skip Shadowlands. Now, when they create alts, so when you go unlock another class, you would then have an option to level that class up to a different expansion if you want to. So you might play through the game. Imagine a new player starts with the Hall of the Novice experience and then plays through Shadowbringers as a warrior. Great choice. Plays through Endwalker as a warrior, or better yet in this example, 7.0. They play through 7.0. Let's call it Dragonflight. They play through Dragonflight on a warrior because that's their max level character. And then they realize, I want to try White Mage. They now grab White Mage and they move into ARR, or Heavensward, or Endwalker, whichever one they want. And then, afterwards, their White Mage does Dragonflight. Okay? All the way through. What this means is that an item that is crafted for the middle of an expansion, or the end of an expansion, with the exception of the current expansion, really doesn't make sense, because every single expansion is now effectively what Final Fantasy would call synced. So, every first dungeon, instead of it being 51, 61, 71, every first dungeon is level 16. Every second dungeon is level 18. Every third dungeon is level 24. Every fourth dungeon is level 27. And so now you have Sastasha being, and Tamtara and Toto Rock being comparable to the leveling dungeons in... I'm tanking. In ARR, right, as Stormblood and Heavensward. So it's like that the whole way. I didn't realize I was tanking. Did I forget my stance? Got it. Okay. Trying to do two things at once. So, crafting kind of breaks, right? Because all of a sudden, you need crafting to sync up with these levels. But now, each expansion is also being condensed. So now you have the final thing from each expansion being crafted, the kind of 0.55 patch, if you will, being something that needs to be on a scale that scales to the very first item crafted. And that kind of makes a lot of items really worthless, because you don't need all the mid-tier stuff, and you don't need the early expansion max level stuff. You don't need to craft the 0.0 stuff when you can craft the 0.55 stuff. Right? That doesn't make any sense. So what Time Worn Artifacts did, we're talking in 14 language for World of Warcraft here, so stay with me. What it did was, Time Worn Artifacts gave you the ability to upgrade, in Final Fantasy XIV terms, augment the item level of an item. I believe up or down, if I recall. So now, in crafting, I would say, craft this item, and it's going to take 2 iron ingots, 3 wind shards, and a piece of toad leather. But there is an optional item I can put in there called a Time Worn Artifact. And a Time Worn Artifact effectively allows you to manually adjust the item level. So if you don't put a Time Worn Artifact in, the item appears at the item level that it was originally intended. So this would be an item level 17. Totally fine. If you put a Time Worn Artifact in, however, I could adjust that to being a 115 or being You know? I can do that. So, the PTR was something where I felt really passionate about what the Time Worn Artifact system was going to do to the game. There was some speculation it was going to break some things, which wouldn't be uncommon. And so I hopped in and exclusively copied over my character for the sole purpose of testing the Time Worn Artifact system. I gave multiple bugs that I ran into, and then I logged out. So as we talk about beta testing, that's how I believe to use the PTR. Because you can find a lot of bugs. And all the bugs that I reported, I probably wasn't the only person to report them, all got handled.
I won a prize that's not materia.
So I had a better launch experience and won a prize that's not materia. Much like the amazingness of Brian gifting us up to Pull. So hopefully that kind of explains Time Worn Artifacts a little bit. Chris, we're going to be 2 hours into this stream before I get to a Realm Replayed. Sorry. Chris has been the one highlighting streams down to a Realm Replayed. And this stream has been much bigger. We're 2 hours in. And I've talked about the news. And I assume Brian wants to talk about the news at some point. So. That's kind of my view on, like, how I use the PTR, and how Time Worn Artifacts work, as a complete tangent. For any of you that don't know how the WoW systems work. Because they have to handle problems that don't exist in 14. Because, like, alts don't really exist in 14. There's, like, I can try to draw a parallel, and I'm on an alt right now. But as a typical rule, alts don't exist. Let's do it to it. Alright. I should have gotten Shield Lob. Ah, I did! I didn't bind it. I did not bind it! And in the darkness, bind them. Nailed it. This is my first battle content to run on this job. Of really any kind. Let's charge on. So we can do that right after this, Brian. We can film that. We'll be 4 hours into the stream and won't have done anything. No Realm Replayed today. Unless Square Enix is going to do a policy enforcement change, the third-party tools news is much ado about nothing. There was no policy adjustment, but this is the first time that we have seen bans going out for third-party usage since Endwalker, which means that there will be many new players that this is the first time it's affected them. Right? So, long-time players, this affected nothing. This will be a refresher for how this game functions for new players. Alright. My goal for this week, from a Realm Replayed standpoint, is to get all of the class quests done. All of the sub-level 30 quests done. I think I'm going to do all the crafters in Heavensward. Just so that if I want to boost one, I have access to restoration. So, we're going to skip those. I don't think I'll need it. I think with Grand Company turn-ins I'll be fine, but I also need to progress my Grand Company. I have not done that. It's possible today's just a total distraction. It's possible we get no Realm Replay done today. No respect, I tell you. Alright. Let me know if... I'll keep an eye on the website here. Doesn't look like the switch button works yet. We did get the ability to upgrade weapons, but you need to have already had them equipped prior to the change. In my game. I upgraded my missile launcher to level 9 and my grenade launcher to level 7. I have a lot more spice than most of you. I assume my grenade launcher is going to be the better bet now that I largely outlevel the level of stuff we're going to take on. We also need to create the ability to push levels a little faster, because one of the problems we're having right now is, like, power level is determined by the average amount of damage you do per game, but we're kind of hitting the theoretical maximum amount of damage that can be done, because it's not spawning enemies fast enough for us to get a chance to do more damage. So, I think if we triple the number of enemies, that'll help kind of overcome that gap. And we'll be able to push into the harder content. Because we do have 4 different enemy types, and we haven't even seen the 4th enemy type. We've seen the base enemies, the fast enemies, the big, slow, shieldy enemies. But we have not seen the final enemy type, the carriers. Alright. Oh, they've got it. They've got it. They're nailing it. I could eat some raisins, I guess. I should have been doing that before. Probably just level. There we go. I do need to finish up my map. As an update, I've been drawing a updated world map for Final Fantasy XIV, like this. But I've been going through and methodically correcting it because this map is inaccurate. Like, if you take the zones and you overlay them on the map, the zones actually tell a slightly different story. And so I've been slowly kind of correcting that. I've got all of Aldenard corrected, which is one of the largest areas. Inland areas can just slide in, right? They don't break anything outside of maybe like river placement. But like they don't change the shape of the continent, as opposed to the islands do drastically change, especially islands that have multiple zones on them, which is really just our Vilebrand, which is where Lenosha is. So the Lenosha zones drastically change the shape of the way that works. There's some stuff going on with the Shroud that's a little weird. But Ul'dah and all that largely, if it informs us of anything, it informs us of how big the Sigali Desert really is. So the Sigali Desert is represented in-game that we can visit right here in southern Thanalan. But the Sigali Desert is actually a great deal larger than that. It spans from Cape Deadwind all the way over. And the zone that we get to play is really only like this part of it. So it likely expands like all the way out in either direction. Which is a lot larger.